Good morning, and welcome to the Brenda Perryman Show right here on TV 33, WHPR, Comcast 20 in Detroit. And Happy New Year to you. This is my first day back since the new year started, and I couldn't think of a better celebration to come back to than the celebration of fathers, especially extraordinary fathers. Now, all of them can't be written about in a book, but these who are written about in this book give some examples of why some of their children became very successful. But I'd like to introduce you to the authors of the book, my guests, Bill Middlebrooks Jr. and Leslie Gordon. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Great.
Feeling good.
Oh, that's good. You know, at least it isn't as bad as it was early in the week. Monday it was really cold.
Brutal.
Did you go outside Monday?
Just to shovel the snow.
Oh, you shovel?
Yes, ma'am. It helps with cardio. You know, it's my exercise. You know.
No, the only reason I say that is because so many people, they say, have heart attacks shoveling.
Well, I have a snowblower.
Oh.
So you're cheating a little bit, Bill.
Yeah, he's cheating. He told me he shoveled.
Well, there was a little shoveling involved. You know,
Yeah.
you got to push it.
That step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a good workout.
Good workout.
Uh-huh.
Good workout. But it was pretty cold because I take a water class on Monday and I couldn't do it.
Oh.
No.
I'm surprised anybody would be able to get to the gym to even do that, right?
Oh,
In that
well,
weather? It was
I
terrible.
went yesterday. I went
Okay.
yesterday, just trying to get,
Yeah.
you know, I hadn't exercised for a few weeks and I need to do that. But first and foremost, before we talk about this wonderful book, Dare to be Extraordinary, let's find out a little about each of you. Ladies first.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm
Absolutely.
a chauvinistic lady.
No, absolutely.
Thank
Leslie.
you, Brenda. Thanks so much for having Bill and me on your show. I'm Leslie Gordon, and I am co-author of Dare to be Extraordinary. I am originally from Chicago. I've been living in the Detroit area for about 3 years now, and I'm a writer, an author now with Bill, and I have a marketing and PR background. I worked for a number of advertising and communications agencies, primarily in Chicago. I've done a nonprofit. I've worked at the University of Chicago in the Chicago Urban League as a senior vice president of external affairs. I've got 3 wonderful children, a son who's graduating from college in May this year, a daughter who goes to Howard University, and then I have a 15-year-old freshman at the University of Detroit Jesuit, and a wonderful husband, and all is well.
All is well. All is well with Leslie. And so did you live all the time in Chicago? Or?
I've lived in a number of places. I grew up in Chicago and in Hawaii, on the Big Island in Hawaii.
Wait, let me imagine Hawaii. Let me imagine Hawaii.
In this weather.
Especially
in this
right now.
weather.
Yes, I think about it often, and I have Facebook friends that I went to high school with in Hawaii, and I see the beautiful pictures of the beaches and the things they're doing in their warm climate, and I'm really not happy right now.
I know. I'm getting allergic to this weather. But tell me this. So you lived in Hawaii also.
Yes.
But in your professional life, did you live always in Chicago?
I did not. I actually lived overseas quite a bit as well. My ex-husband played professional basketball, and so we lived in Italy, in Fabriano, Italy. We lived in Barcelona, Spain. We lived in Japan for about 4 years, where I went to graduate school. My oldest son, went to an all-Japanese kindergarten where they spoke nothing but Japanese, so he was immersed into the culture there.
Immersion is the best way to learn the language.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And in Atlanta, here in Michigan a couple of times, so I've been
Well,
all
so
over.
you've been all over.
Absolutely.
I mean, literally
All
all
over.
over.
Mhm.
Yeah. What about you, Bill? You're here.
Well, yeah, but first, Brenda, you've got to make sure that she talks about her Detroit connection. What brought her here to Detroit? Because
Yes,
we've got
I
one of
was
Detroit's
going
own.
to
Yeah, okay.
Detroit's
Oh,
own,
all right.
and I was going to bring that up
Okay.
later. But
All right.
who is your husband?
My husband is broadcast journalist Ed Gordon. He is a Detroit born and raised on West Outer Drive, is that correct? Your
West
neighbor?
Outer Drive.
Absolutely.
West Outer Drive.
5511 West
He
Outer
used
Drive.
to come. I'd be over Marcia's house and Marcia's house, and he used to come to that kitchen window all the time. Hi, Miss Hudson. Hi, Miss Hudson. I said, who is this kid? You know. So Yes, yes, yes. Ed Gordon awards. He also, ladies, interviewed, and it's online. Idris Elba.
It is. Yes, we were in Las Vegas for that interview, and Idris Elba was wonderful. And actually, Ed just returned from South Africa. He
Yes.
covered Nelson Mandela's funeral and homegoing and spent a couple of weeks there. So he just
Yeah, I
returned.
saw a lot of the pictures. He posted a lot of the pictures on Facebook and stuff like that. So, Ed Gordon,
Right.
Detroit's own, made it good.
My man, my best friend
Right.
since the 6th grade, and so that's why Leslie and I are
Connection.
together. So
I know, Outer Drive, West Outer Drive.
yes, what a community.
Why don't you tell us about you, Bill?
Okay. Well,
Junior.
I am born and raised in Detroit, and have stayed here
Where'd
my
you go
entire
to high
life.
school?
I went to Catholic Central High School.
I went to Catholic school.
Yeah,
too.
my class was the last graduating class on the Outer Drive campus before they moved, and then Renaissance High
Bernie
School.
Holowicki
Yes,
was
yes.
the coach. He
was
was
a basketball
actually
coach.
the basketball coach when I was in high school. So this
Right.
man coached for at least 75 years.
Yeah, he cut me my freshman year too.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. All right, I have other skills, you know. Yeah, but anyway.
My producer went to Immaculata.
Okay, great. Well, I went to Catholic Central. Then I went to the University of Michigan. I graduated from the business school there, and then I started my professional career working for the IBM Corporation,
Oh,
and spent time up in Midland, actually. And then I got married to my bride, who lived on Outer Drive,
oh goodness.
5 blocks down from me. Her brother and I were very good friends growing up. So I've known my wife since I was about 6 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And so
About knowing me.
well, she knows all my warts and all of my good sides. So,
Oh, okay.
But I say I'm from Detroit, proud to be Detroiter, and I greatly appreciate the
What
opportunity
is
to
your
be here.
button?
The pin is I'm a member of the 100 Black Men of Greater Detroit.
Oh, great.
and,
great.
past
and
president.
before we even get away from that and get into this, tell the audience about 100 Black Men.
Well, the 100 Black Men is an organization of committed African American men that are interested in improving the life and the quality of life and experiences of our community, with a primary focus in the area of children. And we're part of a national organization. There are over 106 chapters across the country, over 10,000 African American men that, again, are focused on giving back, mentoring.
What are some of
so-
the ways that you give back in the community?
Well, for the last 6 years, we have our cornerstone project has been an event and a partnership that we've had with Southeastern High School. It's called Project Success. And what we've done there is we've gone into that high school and we work with students starting with them being freshmen. And we work and mentor them all the way through high school, through graduation, and several now that have graduated and are into college, and we're still mentoring them. Southeastern High School had a graduation rate for African American males of around 40%. Our first cohort 3 years ago that graduated, we had 92% of our students graduated from Southeastern.
Excellent. I've been over to Southeastern.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 years, Brenda, we've had 100% of our young men that have graduated and then are going on to either a community college, a 4-year college, or service, or they're working. And so,
Good. Are you still able to work with them even though they're at EAA school now?
yes.
Okay.
We are committed to working with this group that will get them through high school, and then we'll continue to see whether we'll stay with the EAA. They've been very supportive of us. We've had requests from other DPS schools. We even had a request from a school in Birmingham to actually go out and work with their students.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, have you written a book before?
No, this is my first and probably my last.
Don't say that because wait a minute, I'm going to ask about the sequel and
Yeah,
all of that
right,
good stuff.
right.
So, what was the impetus? What made you all decide to write a book on fathers? I could think of a million reasons, but I want to know what were your reasons.
Sure. Well, let me first say that this book would not be here today were it not for Leslie. Leslie and I started on this project about 2 years ago. And if I can kind of go back to my own father,
Yes, please.
Arthur Middlebrooks, and this was a man that had a high school education, but he put 5 kids through college without a single dime of financial aid, all on his back, his blood, his sweat, his tears. And what my father would always tell me is that, son, the only difference between living an ordinary life and an extraordinary life is your willingness to do the extra in everything that you do. And so my father was always present in my life. Even when my parents divorced when I was a freshman in high school. Remember, now this is in 1974. There were no cell phones. There were no emails. I spoke to my father every day. I saw my father every weekend. My parents never spoke ill of one another in my presence.
That's so important.
Absolutely. And we can talk more about that. But this was an opportunity for me to do a couple things. One, to honor my own father and his commitment to raising me and my brothers and sisters. But on a wider basis, to recognize and honor those African American men who every day step up, assume the responsibility to be fathers, who don't get, the pats on the back. In our community, in the normal discourse and dialogue, when you talk about African American men, you don't hear a lot about us being recognized or called engaged, loving, present fathers. And so what I want to do is I wanted to be part of a different dialogue and begin a new positive discussion about the role of African American men as engaged, loving fathers. And at the end of the day, I wanted to provide testimony, not only to our community, but to the broader community, that African American men have been, continue, and will be engaged, loving fathers.
What do you think? And that is so excellent that your father made it his pledge in life to be with you and still be in your life, almost like he still lived
Absolutely.
with you. And it was that continuity there. What makes some fathers almost afraid to be fathers? I mean, some fathers, they give birth to children, but almost afraid to be fathers.
They may not have had that sort of example in their lives where their fathers, where they saw how to really be a father. So when you think of society today where there's a lot of divorce or a lot of children that are not born into a two-parent household, a lot of these men don't really have that proper roadmap or the proper guidance, or they may have a lot of other pressures in their lives that kind of take them away from their children. Not saying that that's an okay thing, that's not okay, and this is why we've written this book, to really encourage those, whether they live with their children or not, or whether they're involved, with the mother of their children, to step up and to really play an active role in their lives.
Excellent, excellent, because that father is so important, good or bad. That father, I don't mean good or bad like that, but what I mean is, my parents separated, and I knew where my father worked. He worked in the neighborhood, kind of. He managed a gas station, and I was always up there, or he'd come by the house and give me money, get that $1.50, and I thought I was cooking with gas, but still there were things that he would tell me in his wisdom that I still remember today, and it's very, very important. So your dad, is he still here?
No, my father passed away on Mother's Day, 1998. But to Leslie's point, and going back to why we did this, my experience as a member of the 100 Black Men of Greater Detroit, and as a past president, I saw firsthand what happens when you don't have a positive role model in the life of a child. And our motto at the 100 is what they see is what they'll be. And so if they don't see and hear and know about, African American men being engaged, being loving, it's difficult for them to answer your question, why do we have this problem? And
Right.
so
It gives them something to aspire to.
oh, no question about it. No question about it. And so when we looked at, those things of wanting to honor fatherhood, and then you back up and, I was born in Detroit in 1960. And the United States Census did an analysis that identified children living in what they call father-absent homes. And that says, you're growing up in a home where you do not have a father living with you, not involved regularly in your life. For white Americans, children, that number was 8% of the population, all right? For African American children, that number was 31%. This is in 1960. Let's fast forward to 2010 when the last census report was done. That same report showed for white American children living in father-absent homes, the number had gone from 8% to 21%. For African American children, that number had gone from 31% to 57%. So in 2014, that number is over 60%. And so what I did is I sat down with Leslie and I said, hey, Leslie, we got to figure out how do we bend this curve, bend the
Right,
curve
right.
of father-absent homes.
Right.
We got to be able to tell a story and engage our community in a dialogue, in a discussion about fatherhood. We don't need to discuss it just once, in June, and the other 364 days, it's business as usual. When you look at all of the challenges that our community faces, whether it's drug addiction, education, poverty, crime, prison, drug abuse, you peel back the onion, Brenda, and
Yes.
the issue is
Yes.
what? I didn't have a positive father role model in my life. We got to own this. Nobody from Washington is going to come with a program or dollars to fix this thing.
Right.
We own it.
Absolutely.
All
We
right.
do own that. What about you, Leslie?
So Brenda, I was very close to my father. In fact, I was named after my father. He was Leslie. I was named Leslie as well, and I loved him dearly. He was very involved with my brother and me, and he was actually killed when I was 13. And it was very tragic for our entire family, as I was, very
How many
close to him.
sisters and brothers did you have?
I have one brother who's older, and then I have a half-sister who I'm very close to, who is a lot younger than I am. She's about 15 years younger than I am, my baby sister. So there are
Well,
three of
you're
us.
only like 18.
Bless your heart.
I'm serious.
I have a child in college, so if you do the math.
I know.
But yeah, so my father was killed when I was young, and that was really difficult for a teenage girl who's still trying to figure out life, who needs that's when we need our dads the most, I think. So I didn't have him as I grew up, but I've had wonderful father figures in my life. My grandfather, my father's father, he and I were very close. He died about 5 years ago, and I have always considered him a father. Excuse me. I have a stepfather who I've been very close to, and just a lot of positive men who have been there to kind of nurture my brother and my sister and myself, and to help us.
So for the book,
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to. Were on the same mission.
Absolutely. Ed and I actually worked on a foundation. He started a foundation called Daddy's Promise in 2008, I believe. And he and I worked very closely to really build that foundation. And that really celebrates the relationship between fathers and daughters. My daughter, Taylor, my stepdaughter, Ed and Taylor are very close. And he always wanted to really talk about how close and how important that relationship between fathers and daughters should be. So we've done a number of events around the country, and really he talks about fatherhood and the relationship between fathers and daughters all around the country at a number of different events. And so that's always been an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I have 2 sons and, again, my stepdaughter. So being a parent, being a mother, and really understanding the importance of having a father in the lives of our children is something that's always been really special to me and important to me. So when Bill approached me about this project, it just struck a chord, and I said, we absolutely have to do this.
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny with fathers, and what I like about this book, you do the father-son relationships and you do father-daughter relationships. And they're 2 different kinds of relationships, I believe, don't you?
Oh, well, absolutely, but I can only speak to because I got 2 boys, so I'm not sure I'm an expert on
But you
daughters.
talk
but yes,
to people. You
oh,
did
absolutely,
talk to people.
absolutely. And again, you know, the book Dare to Be Extraordinary, a collection of positive life lessons from African American fathers. You know, again, our focus was we wanted to interview extraordinary men and women to explore the relationship and the influence that their fathers had on their lives that put them on a path to lead
And some
in extraordinary
fathers
lives.
were stepfathers.
Yes.
You know,
That's correct.
they were their stepfathers.
Right.
So that was okay. It was that father figure.
Right.
And like with Robin Roberts, she said her father was the one who said, 9-to-5 job isn't for you.
Right. Yeah, she and her father were very close. She called him an officer and a gentleman. He was a Tuskegee Airman, and they had a very special relationship. She said that because of his life and because he was in aviation and he flew all around the world and was in 3 wars, he showed her that she didn't have to be tied to a desk. She didn't have to be working a traditional 9-to-5 in order to really feel fulfillment in her professional career. And so she said, why not do, how could I not try and do something really phenomenal with my own life
And
because my father showed me the way.
It's nothing like that encouragement from inside the family.
Right.
Because a lot of people do things that maybe the family doesn't approve of their profession that they're choosing and stuff. It's hard. It's harder when it's not there.
Right.
Can you speak to any of that? Well, your father probably was approved of what you were going to do.
Again, out of my siblings, I was probably closest to my father. I was the youngest, and I came along late. I tell people I came in under the wire. My dad was 44 when I was born. All right, and so he had obviously quite a bit of time to mature and to grow. But no question, my dad was an entrepreneur. And
that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
What his profession?
Yeah, my dad was an entrepreneur. He started out by owning some liquor stores over on the corner of Forest and Russell. And then from there, in 1972, my dad would always read the paper. He would always, every night, leave the house and go buy a paper and bring it home. Today, that's why I read 3 newspapers every day. But he saw something in the paper, and this is back in the early 70s when the state of Michigan, they were closing down the mental health hospitals where people that had mental health challenges, they were moving them into the communities, into the adult foster care homes. And so my father was a pioneer in that arena. And so my dad, at his apex, had 6 adult foster care homes across the city. And my father, when he was ready to retire, as I said, I was the closest to him, always with him on the weekends, in the summers with him all the time working. I didn't have a passion for that particular work, nor did I have the patience for that.
Okay.
And my father said to me, as he was retiring, he said, look, I've run my race in life. You got to run yours. And so he didn't put the pressure on me that said, you got to follow in my footsteps. What I've done is I've given you the opportunity to think for yourself. I've shown you how to treat people with respect. I've taught you about what it means to be a man of integrity, a man of compassion. You go do what you want to do.
So did any of your brothers become entrepreneurs?
No.
That because I know a lot of entrepreneurs who want to hand the business down
Sure.
to their children. But
Right.
a lot of times, sometimes the children don't want that.
Right.
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 They
Yeah,
don't want that.
Absolutely. And so that was important for me to follow my path, but certainly with the lessons that he had shared and kind of planted inside of me, which kind of brings us to this point.
Yes. What was your most challenging interview?
Probably, I would say, Bill, you may disagree, but I would say Russell Simmons was the most challenging, not because he wasn't the most interesting. I thought his story, he talked about his father, Daniel Simmons, and how he was from Baltimore and really kind of from the streets of Baltimore, came up a little hard, if you will.
Became a real literary man.
He did, very literary. He taught black history on a college level, and he turned out to be very extraordinary himself. But Russell, it was hard to extract the stories from him, and because he talks very much about his own humanitarian work and the work he's done, obviously in popular culture and urban culture, and how his father influenced him to think for himself and to be a man of of integrity and to really focus on humanity. But it was hard to get the information from him because he kind of talked in a very circular way, and it was like just
You had to pull it.
Yes,
you
yes,
felt
we had to
like
pull
you
it out of him.
But you pulled a lot out.
We did. I thought so. I think he really kind of got into the conversation. He was very proud to talk about his dad and his mom's role in his life as well, and his brothers, and how he has become a really very hands-on father for his own two daughters. So he was very interesting to talk to, and he had really great wisdom to share that he learned from his dad. But getting the information I had to stop and really think hard on how to put his chapter together and make it cohesive and make it make sense.
Right.
What about
Right.
you, Bill?
Well, before I answer that question, it might be helpful for your viewers to understand who's in the book.
I was, as she started talking, I
Yeah.
said, I mentioned Robin
Roberts.
Roberts,
Uh-huh.
and I mentioned Russell Simmons, but we have also local people in the book, too. Why don't you both tell us who's in the book?
Well, we decided to do what we call famous and not so famous people. Famous because people are interested in celebrity, but we also wanted to talk about people who you may not hear of their names on a day in and day out basis, or you may not have heard of them before.
But they grew up in your community.
Right.
Yes, and they're people of substance, all right? And so the fact that we have people like Russell Simmons, Robin Roberts, former U.S. Congressman Harold Ford Jr., former UN Ambassador Andrew Young,
Ilyasa
Shabazz,
Malcolm X's daughter, Alan Houston, philanthropist in New York Knicks
You have
management.
one of my former book club members in here.
Kim Harris Jones,
Harris-Jones.
all right, former Mayor Dennis Archer,
Rosalind Brewer.
Roz Brewer, CEO of Sam's Club, who's from Detroit. We have Reverend Nicholas Hood III. We have his better half, and I'm sure he would agree with that, is Federal Judge Denise Page Hood. And so we wanted to look at people from all walks of life, and we wanted to have experiences that we could talk to people so that they could look at and say, you know what, everybody didn't grow up in a Bill Cosby, Felicia Rashad, the Cosby family environment. And so we've got a broad range of people and experiences, but there's an underlying consistent theme there that these extraordinary men imbued in their sons and daughters that put them on a path to lead an extraordinary life. Was there a difficult interview? I don't think they were
challenging. I didn't say
well challenging. I think I would agree. Russell, because he is so active and animated, and he's got 5, 6 things going on at one time, and so trying to keep Russell focused probably was our biggest challenge. Hey, hold on, I need to take this call. So that was probably the challenge. Yeah,
Where
right.
were we?
Right.
Well, what I do like too was you talked about how the parents met. I thought that was wonderful to talk about how the two people meet, because a lot of times you want to know how your parents met each other.
We thought it was important to give that level of detail and background and to really sort of carry the reader through this young person's journey and how their parents how they came to be, essentially, because it kind of sets the tone for their relationship and sort of how they raise their children, and it just informed a lot of what their lives really came to be.
You know, it's funny, with Allen Houston, he wanted to play for his father.
He did.
Some athletes would not want to play for their dad because the objectivity's not there and so forth. But he said his father wasn't one to berate him and everything like that. And I thought that was a very important lesson.
Allen Houston, I was really impressed by him. His father, Wade Houston, as we know, coached for many years, and he is such an upstanding man and a very classy man. And Allen spoke very candidly about the fact that everyone that he ever worked with in the NBA, on his college teams, talked about how classy and upstanding his father has always been. And so he looked at his father as the ultimate role model. He wanted to be like his father. He wanted to really absorb the lessons that his father was teaching. And
What were some of the lessons that his father showed him?
I would say for Allen Houston, he talked a lot about really being prepared. It didn't matter that his father was coaching him. He didn't care. He didn't give him any special favors or allowances. He made him work just as hard, if not harder, than his other teammates because he wanted to really push him and bring out the very best in him. So
Right.
he learned a lot of love and compassion. He said his father was never afraid to hug him and tell him he loved him. He would sit with him, and his father would cut his hair. They were just like special, tender moments
Special,
in their
right,
lives that
they
Right.
can look back on
Right.
and remember. And Harold Ford became a congressman, and his father was a congressman
Yes.
too, wasn't
Yeah, he followed his father in his district.
That had to be difficult.
Yes, because his father was an extremely well thought of congressman in his district there in Tennessee. And, you know, he created a legacy, and sometimes that's always, it can be a challenge for some children
Yeah, it
to
can be.
to follow in their father's footsteps.
And locally, with the Hoods,
Yes.
they were talking about how the father, Nicholas, that was Nicholas, right?
Senior. Mm-hmm.
Nicholas Sr.,
Mm-hmm.
he was kind of tight with the pocketbook.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the one. He was kind of frugal.
Well, he
was frugal
he grew up
because
with
he grew up
right,
so poor.
right,
Right.
exactly.
And a lot of people don't know that about him.
And it was Dennis Archer too, who grew up very poor in
Right.
Cassopolis,
Cassopolis.
Michigan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, right. I mean, he grew up very poor, and you can grow up poor and have a future. What do you think is the formula, or what is it within these fathers and mothers too, that encourage their children to do so much more than, so that they didn't have the life that they did or have to
Sure.
be like that?
I think that for all 20 of these extraordinary men, and they come from all kinds of backgrounds. Some of them didn't even finish high school, to some that had advanced degrees. But they all had one thing in common, Brenda, and that was they imbued in their sons and daughters a sense of pride in everything that they do. And when I talk about pride, I define the word pride as personal responsibility in delivering excellence. And so every one of these men, you know, whether, you know, it was, Ernest Archer, you know, Mayor Archer's father, you know, to, John Rogers, his father, the judge, you know, said, what I want you to do is whatever you do, I want you to do it with pride, all right? Personal responsibility in delivering excellence. So what does it mean? That means pride says I'm being prepared,
Right.
I'm being professional, and I'm being proactive, all right? R says I'm being responsive, I'm being respectful, I'm being resourceful. The word I says I'm being involved, I'm taking the initiative, I'm being innovative with my thought process, and my emotions are wedded to the future, not wedded to the past, all right? And we talk about D in terms of demanding, dedicated, all right, and discipline in what you do. And then the word, the letter E in the word pride says you need to have enthusiasm with everything that you do. You've got to have excellence with everything that you're committed to.
I think about Kim
Yeah.
Harris Jones,
Right.
who brought a B home, and her father said, "Could you have made it an A?"
Uh-huh.
And she said, "Yeah." He wasn't telling her anything she hadn't already told
Right.
herself. I
Right.
could have gotten an A.
Sure.
I could have gotten an A. And having been a teacher, and I taught for 39 years, I saw those students. One student I gave an A- to. First day of school in September, she says, "Miss Perryman, I thought about you all summer, all summer. You gave me an A-. I couldn't sleep all summer." I mean, she all summer. This was, and she
That's
went
Kim
to
Harris
Michigan.
Jones.
Right.
It's like,
She went to Michigan.
Right.
But yeah, that's what she. I mean, some kids get in that. Sometimes I think grades can be a bit overrated, you
Uh-huh.
know, but some kids are just like that. They believe that that's showing how excellent they
Right.
can be.
Well,
right?
I know Kim personally. Kim and I went to Michigan together. We were one of about a dozen African American students in the business school, and she by far was the brightest and one of the most driven people that I've met. And she is an extraordinary woman and
She
has
is. She
done
is.
some extraordinary things and continues to do
And
that
she
now.
has been at the top of so many companies.
Yes.
And, well, she's at Kraft now. Well, Kraft changed its name.
Well, no, they split.
Split.
Right.
They split up, and so it's Mondelez is the name of the International is the name of the company, but
Oh.
they used to be a part of Kraft Foods.
Okay.
Right. Mhm.
And I was, why don't you talk to the audience a bit about Shabazz?
Ilyasa.
Ilyasa Shabazz.
I've met the other one, the oldest one, but I've never met Ilyasa.
Ilyasa is actually a good friend of mine. She is one of Malcolm X's 6 daughters, and she obviously grew up really not just with her mother raising she and her sisters. She is she speaks publicly. She's a public speaker. She's an author. In fact, I think she just authored a new children's book that focuses on her father's life. And she's a real dynamic woman because her mother really set the tone for how her daughters should live their lives. And she kept his spirit, Malcolm X's spirit, alive in their house from the time he passed through their childhood.
That's what I was going to mention. His legacy.
His legacy, but she didn't know her father's political activism and his civil rights activism, if you will, in their household. Betty Shabazz really focused on him as a father and as a husband and as a man. And so the lessons she taught her daughters at the dinner table each night or before they went to bed was really about how Daddy would, think of, what they should learn, different lessons that they should learn, really focused on him as a father, really not as in his political life. And she didn't really start to understand the magnitude of Malcolm X until she went to college. She talked about how when she was on campus I think she went to Fordham University, people would run up to her, "Are you Malcolm X's daughter? Are you Malcolm X's daughter?" She didn't really fully understand what that meant.
She read the biography.
She finally read his autobiography, and she said it just kind of changed the dynamic of kind of how she saw her father, and it allowed her to understand really who he was as a man of this world and not just as her daddy. And so she had a real moving story about his legacy and her love for him as a father. And really, she tries to go around the country and around the world and talk about the power and the magnitude of Malcolm X as a humanitarian and as a man. And she and her sisters try to carry his legacy forth.
Absolutely. And she talked about how both of them like cookies.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I thought that was so sweet. The little things that you share, like you said, the haircuts and the little things that you share with your dad.
Right.
That nobody else you expect from your dad. He comes through the door, and there's something special about that. My daughter always talks about coconut cake.
Oh.
No, she didn't like it, but her dad would like it. She just said Dad would just bring it home to torture me, but she loved it because he did that.
Right, and Ilyasa talked about how her father always brought home, I think it was chocolate chip cookies, and after he passed away, she couldn't understand, she didn't really have that memory until her mother would break a cookie for her, and then she would eat the cookies, and it would just bring back memories of her father. And she said as she grew up, her friends knew that she loved cookies, and they would give her gifts that related to either cookies or a cookie jar or something that just brought her father back into the fore.
Yeah, that half a cookie,
Uh-huh.
that warmed my heart. That warmed my heart so much. What about, there was someone I was going to ask you. Oh, Andrew Young's son.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about him, Andrew Young.
He's certainly one of the reasons that many of us are where we are today.
Absolutely.
And I would tell you that that interview, probably for me, was the most interesting because of his relationship and his walk through history that allowed people like me and Leslie and others to be able to do the things that we're doing. And so what I found interesting was his father did not like and had a mistrust of preachers. All right?
Isn't that
Yes.
interesting?
And his father was a dentist. And his father wanted him to grow up and be a dentist. And when Ambassador Young decided that he wanted to go to divinity school after graduating from college, his father refused to pay for him to go to divinity school. And he went on his own, paid for it himself. And at his first year, he did not come home. He wrote to his parents and communicated with them via letter. They would send him, his mother would try and send him a couple dollars, but it was there that he then had this connection and met Reverend King, and the rest is history in terms of that whole civil rights movement. And so his story was important, and particularly his father. One of the lessons that he said his father taught him, and this was important in the civil rights movement, is his father said, the racists and the bigots that you encounter, don't get mad at them, because you don't get mad at people that have a sickness, an illness. All right?
Interesting.
And I thought that that was a rather powerful perspective and lesson that he taught him, so that you don't get mad at those folks because they have this illness. What you try to do is bring a solution to help them move beyond that illness that they have.
Well, that was an interesting way to look at it, and a less stressful way to look at it. That less stressful.
Yeah.
I didn't tell everybody this book has historic pictures in it. Oh, the photos were lovely. I mean, I had never seen this picture of Ilyasa and Malcolm X
Right.
before. I mean, you've seen a lot of pictures of he and his children, but where were you able to get a lot of these pictures? Straight from them? Or
Yeah,
what?
we talked to each of the people in the book when we asked them to provide a picture that really kind of told the story about their father, or was just a touching moment. You'll see like Kim Harris Jones and her father walking down the aisle together. Ilyasa was 3 years old. She was being carried by her father. There are a number of really nice personal photos, and we just asked them to share what they thought would convey their relationship with their father.
And it's important to know, too, Brenda, that if people are interested in getting the book, they can go to our website, which is www.extraordinaryfathers.com.
Yeah, we were going to. I was going to find out all the ways they
Sure.
could get your book.
And,
Extraordinary,
Yeah.
and that's what I always tell people: extraordinary, extraordinary.
right, right. Again,
That's the key
Yeah.
spelling.
absolutely. So at www.extraordinaryfathers.com, they can go and purchase the book, and soft cover. We have a hardcover, and we have an ebook version as well. And 25% of all of the profits of the book are going to charities that these 20 men and women have directed those funds to.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And
that's-
so
I didn't know that.
the other funds are going towards an effort that I'm trying to pull off here in Detroit in 2014,
What is it?
and that is an Extraordinary Fathers Academy, where what we're trying to do is to create a program where African American men can come and learn the skills to be an extraordinary father, as
Thank
well
you.
as increase their confidence level on how to have better outcomes as a parent. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to focus, as I said earlier, we did this project to bend the curve of father-absent homes. And so we hope to be able to pull something like that off in 2014.
Well, any help as an educator I can give you. And not only that, I always had this connection with boys, the boys, because sometimes, like you say, you get those boys, you know they didn't have that dad, you know, and there's something missing. And sometimes they don't know there's something missing. Isn't that right?
Sure.
But there is, on just the way they treat people, you know, the things that we can do when we notice that, on just how they treat people, what they aspire to, and sometimes give them keys to people that they can, or connect them with
Right.
people who can help them or be that mentor. You know, I notice you don't use the term mentor in this.
In this effort?
No, I'm talking about with 100 black
Oh,
men.
no. I mean, with 100 Black Men, we have a mentoring program. In fact, what we call it is mentoring across a lifetime.
Okay,
And-
that's what I needed
Right,
to hear.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
as I talked earlier about our program called Project Success at Southeastern High School, we again are committed to try and help those young men to graduate through high school. We work with them every Saturday, about 18, 19 weeks out of the year for 4 hours, but we get them through high school. We have some that are in college. Our first student, a young man by the name of Moses Hubert, who is at Olivet College right now, will graduate about a year from now, will be our first, student in our program that's graduated from college. And so still communicate and mentoring, again, across that lifetime.
Oh, that's excellent, because it just doesn't stop.
Right.
No.
Because they want to be able to connect with you
Sure.
again and to reach out.
Sure.
And as a teacher, I say, I'm still talking to students
Right.
I had back in the 70s.
Right.
I mean, really, seriously, that person, it's great to have a person that you can reach out to.
Well, in the book, there's a chapter called What They See is What They'll Be. And it talks about the men that I saw in my neighborhood on West Outer Drive growing up. And I saw these men wake up every day, go to work, provide for their families, come home and be engaged not only in the lives of their children, but, welcoming me
Right.
and others.
Freddie.
Fred Hudson,
Fred,
all right, O'Neill Swanson,
Yeah.
Dr. Willard Holt, Dr. Edgar Smith, men like that took me in to their lives, even though I wasn't their blood child.
Right, but the village.
Yes.
It's the village
Yes.
concept.
Right.
So, are you all available for speaking engagements, or?
Well, we will be available at any time that people would like us to come and talk about this. We don't charge any honorarium or anything like that. This is about a dialogue of getting folks talking about fatherhood 365 days out of the year. We've got to bend the curve, and the only way that we're going to do that is we've got to talk to folks to get them to see what we can do and how we can do it to make a difference.
So they could get the book at Dare to Be Extraordinary.
Yes.
ExtraordinaryFathers.com.
Yeah.
Extraordinary
Fathers.com.
Fathers.
We also have a Facebook page, and
Yes.
it's facebook.com/extraordinaryfathers. So they can find us on Facebook and Twitter. We're at Amazing Dads, right, Bill?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now I'm going to ask this question. Is there going to be a sequel? Extraordinary Mothers.
We've actually talked about that. We haven't gotten started on it yet,
Yeah.
but we know that that's the next logical step in this whole journey because
You know, what I'm so happy about is the fact that you did start with fathers. Because so many times it's the mothers who always get all the laudatory things.
right.
And
we-
moms do a great job. I mean, there's no question. In our community,
Sure do.
in our community, they've carried a heavy burden in more than their fair share. And so I'm not going to rule it out, but I will tell you that we got some time that we need to focus on fixing fathers first.
ExtraordinaryFathers.com,
Yeah.
Bill Middlebrooks, and Leslie Gordon. You must get this book. You must get this book. And is there a phone? Oh, like you said, Facebook. They can reach you on Facebook.
Yep, they can find us at Extraordinary Fathers. If they search Extraordinary Fathers, they'll find us on Facebook and Twitter. Our handle is @AmazingDads.
At Amazing Dads. That's quick.
Yeah.
I'll follow you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So I will see everybody this afternoon. We're doing table talk, and I'd like to thank my guests.
Thank
You all
you.
are wonderful because I could talk about some of these stories. You all will be amazed where some of these people come from. I mean, the beginnings. The beginnings are so important.
And very humble, the humble
Very
beginnings.
humble beginnings. Very humble. And they rose.
And they're living extraordinary lives.
That's right.
Extraordinary lives like you two. So I'll see you this afternoon at 1 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.